Hi, my name is Jason Slowey, and I'm the edge coach and pass rush specialist at Sacramento State University. Today we're going to be talking about the cross chop, a pass rush move we use here when we're in a one-on-one pass rush situation. Hope you guys learned something today.
So today we're going to talk about the cross chop pass rush move, and I'm going to take you through the progression that I've used to teach it to the guys that I coach. I think before we get into the nuts and bolts of how that works, it's really important that we understand how our guys learn and specifically how they develop new motor skills. So when we talk about motor development, there's really going to be three stages. There's the cognitive stage, the associative stage, and the autonomous stage. So a majority of what we're going to talk about today is going to be in the cognitive stage of motor development. So they're using a lot of their brain power, cognitive energy to understand what they're supposed to be doing, how they're supposed to be doing everything. It's called the thinking stage. And it's important that we break the movement or the final result down into sequences, and we teach within those sequences. So to me, that's what a drill progression is. They're in these early stages of learning. They need consistent feedback, and they rely heavily on demonstration. So it's important to, set up your drills and progressions in a manner that foster an environment that allows those guys to be successful. Once they've dedicated the right amount of time, they'll end up progressing to the associative stage. So now they're able to associate what movement they're supposed to perform based on whatever cue they get. So for us as D linemen here at Sac State, that's really important because we teach our guys, hey, we're going to read on the run. So I'm going to be determining what move or what conversion or how I'm going to play that rep as the play is happening. And then ultimately we want to progress into the autonomous stage. So now instead of dedicating our mental energy to figuring out what we're supposed to be doing or where I'm supposed to put my hand or my foot, now I'm focusing on the strategy of the play. This specific pass rush move was designed to be used in a one-on-one or man situation. The player who will have an opportunity to rush one-on-one will be dependent upon what front we're lined up in. In this situation here, we're in a four-man front and we have a shade player in A gap. That tells us that we have three potential one-on-one pass rush situations if we don't count the back. Here we're going to focus on the defensive tackle on our right in B gap. He's in a one-on-one pass rush situation and he's covered by one of his teammates on each side of him. So he's truly got a two-way go here. Using that read on the run principle, he's going to read his man as the play develops. If the guard sets inside or away from him, that tells him his outside pass rush lane is the one that's going to be open. So he's already half man to the quarterback by alignment. So now he's going to attack that surface. He can use one of his primary pass rush moves. Boom, good to go. So still using our read on the run principle and reading the guard as the play develops. Now the guard sets to me or oversets. That opens up the inside pass rush lane. So now I got to work across his face using my cross chop and attack that inside surface because that's the path of the quarterback. This is the exact situation that we're trying to simulate with our drill progression. Let's get into it. Okay, so this is going to be the first drill in our progression. This is how I would teach it to someone who's never done it before. We start just like this, toe to toe, no stagger. I put the towel on the ground to give us some natural spacing. That way we don't spend too much time thinking about if we're too close or too far away. Okay. When we go to move, we need to talk about angle of attack. So a lot of times their first inclination is going to want to step more laterally, more towards 90 degrees, and then go to step forward on their second step. Well, remember, we're working against someone who's retreating, who's working away from us in a pass rush situation. So if we step laterally and we're not always gaining ground on the quarterback, then we give him that extra amount of space to recover, okay? So I always tell him, hey, on that second step, we want to kind of end hip to hip, okay? So we want to take a vertical angle of attack, all right? When we go to move, I always just say, hey, it's opposite hand, opposite foot, because we want to utilize the step through finish Kind of allows us to cut the corner and kind of saves us a step instead of stepping around. Okay. So working to our right here, it's going to be our right foot and left hand working together. Our right foot's going to step on that vertical angle of attack. Our left hand's going to reach for the wrist. And then our second step, boom, we're going to bring our left foot or our back foot. We're going to step through like we talked about. My lead hand, right hand in the situation, we're aiming towards that elbow. That way I can maybe grab onto that. There's also going to be that big shoulder pad surface there in the game too, right? But that's going to help kind of put force away from where he's trying to recover and help me kind of pull through as well. And really good look at it here with the step through. You can see the hand on the tricep and then the shoulders are turned. That way I know I'm getting skinny through my gap. Everything's in the direction of the quarterback. Really good job finishing hip to hip at worst. Remember, we're intentionally starting in a static position and working at step tempo because our guys are in that cognitive stage of their motor development with this new skill. So we need to eliminate as many variables as possible because they're expending all of their brain power trying to figure out how to step through this and trying to be smooth and fluid. So in order to allow them to be successful and move on to the next stage, we need to create an isolated situation where they can focus on getting as many reps as possible. Okay, so we'll move on to the next step in the progression once they've gotten comfortable with their footwork and hand placement. We're still going to start in a static position, toe to toe. Everything stays the same as far as the start goes, but now we're just going to allow ourselves to finish through and possibly add a rip component. So same thing here, opposite hand, opposite foot. Our lead foot steps in that vertical attacking angle with our backhand aiming to get towards the wrist. And then we step through with our back foot as our second hand lands on that tricep, turning the shoulder. Remember, the only thing that changes with this drill from the previous one is we allow them to finish through and rip. Still being in the cognitive stages of their motor development, we try to just introduce one variable at a time with each step in the progression. Once we've gotten confident in our hands and feet, we can move on to the next step in the progression, which is going to add the approach. So before we were in a static position working on a static target. Now we're going to introduce the next variable, which is going to be approaching a static target and when we work across its face. So here we'll have our guys move back to about 5 yards. I'd still have them start nose to nose without a stagger. The blocker they'll be defeating is still static, but they'll be working towards it and they'll have to gauge when it's time to work across his face, and they'll have to remain under control from a moving position instead of a static position. I like this rep here because we're under control in our approach. We work across his face at a vertical angle at the right time, landing our second hand on the tricep so I can hit my step through, and then finish with a nice rip reach to the quarterback under control. Another good look at it here. Wait until the right time to work across his face, and then land my second hand on that tricep, rip reach to the quarterback. The second hand's the most important part. The first hand's really extra. We'll see on the game reps, sometimes we miss with that first hand or just kind of throw it over, but it's that second hand that gets my shoulders to turn and lets me continue my momentum in the direction I'm trying to go. Our final step in the progression is to add a moving target. So usually the way I do this is we'll use the same drill setup as the previous drill. We're working on a static target with an approach. Now as they approach, target will start to move inside out, simulating an overset. Then they'll see that inside lane open, and that's when they'll take their inside lane with the cross chop. Another way I finish this progression, once they've gotten comfortable working towards a static target that moves late, is now I'll add a moving target from the snap of the ball. So here we're still working at about 75% tempo, but the blocker's starting at the line of scrimmage simulating a set from the beginning. So here I'll work with him, get into that overset position as an offensive lineman, and give him that cue to take that inside pass rush lane and hit that cross chop. Here's an example of this move in a live situation. Focusing on the defensive tackle on our right, he's lined up in B gap. He has no running back to his side, and his teammate is in a shade alignment in A gap. So we're hoping to influence a double team there and create a one-on-one pass situation for our B gap player. When the ball is snapped, Xavier's going to read his man on the run. We see that guard set towards him, opening up that inside pass rush lane. So he's going to work across his face, attacking that inside surface, and use his cross chop move. This is a good example here of why that second hand is so critical to this move. Here we miss with the first hand, but the second hand on the tricep allows me to still turn my shoulders, step through to finish. Here's another good look at it, this time out of a 5-man front. Focusing on the B-gap player on our right. Again, we're in a 5-man front. Based on game plan, we're expecting man-on-man protection across the board as opposed to a full slide. Malcolm's going to read his guard on the run. Again, the guard sets toward him, slightly oversetting. We can see the weight distribution moving out. He sees that inside pass rush lane open. Attack that inside surface with a nice vertical angle of attack. Make sure I club the tricep, pull myself through, finish on the quarterback. These reps here are a really good example of your associative and eventually autonomous stages of motor development. So we practiced and progressed through our drill sequence in the cognitive stage, and now we're seeing them put those skills into use, associating it with the correct cues in a live situation.
I hope you got something out of that and were able to take at least one thing back to your players and your team that you coach, whether it's the cross-chop pass rush move itself or just the general theory of motor development that we use here at Sac State. Good luck this season, and Stingers up.